When we talk about dollar markdowns and percent markdowns, again, we're just using the same technique over and over again. We're going to be using the percent increase decrease method. But when we're talking about markdowns, we're specifically going to be talking about decreases. So just like before, if we talked about a decrease, we had an old value, we subtracted the change, and we got the new value. When we're talking about markdowns, we're specifically talking about the selling price, then you subtract the dollar markdown, I'll label it DM, and then we would get the sale price. It's the same concept, just using different language. So let's make our chart where we have the amount and the percentage. Now in this example, it says Kmart marked down an $18 video to $10.80. Calculate the dollar markdown and the markdown percent. So we want to figure out the dollar markdown and the markdown percent. And the information that's given to us is that it started at $18, which is our original 100%, and we marked it down, and then the final price is $10.80. Now, we can easily figure out what the dollar markdown is just using subtraction. I know that whatever I subtract off the 18 would give me $10.80. So working backwards, I would have 18 minus $10.80 would give me $7.20. So we marked it down $7.20 to get it to $10.80. So now I know what this value is. It's $7.20. So when I use my circle to solve, remember we always use the base. This is our original $18. That's our base. And then since we're looking for the percent change on how much it got marked down in terms of percent, the other column we're going to use is the DM column. So I always put the amount of the base here, which is going to be $18. Then I'm going to put $7.20 here, and the amount of the percent change is what we're looking for. So I'm going to put a question mark there. So since we're separating the two values that we know is the division line, I'm just going to take $7.20 and divide by 18. Now because this is a percent, I have to remember to multiply by 100 to put it in percent form. So when I take $7.20 and divide by 18 and then multiply it by 100 to put it in percent form, I'm going to get 40%. So this means I started with $18, which is my original 100%. I marked it down by 40%, which means 40% of that $18 is $7.20. I marked it down 40%, which means this $10.80 is 60% of the original amount. Okay, now this next example is a little bit different because it's a series of percent changes. So we're going to do a series of products to figure out this problem. So here's the key word here. We're doing a series of markdowns. So the problem says Jones Department Store paid its supplier $400 for a TV. So the TV cost this company $400. Then they marked it up 60% on selling price. So here's some more keywords. So they marked it up 60% on selling price to find the selling price. Then, as a special promotion, Jones marked the TV down 30%, then another 20%, and then marked it back up 10%. So we have a whole bunch of things going on here. We're going to handle this step by step so that we don't get confused. The first thing we see here is that we know how much it cost this company to buy the TV. So let's set up our equation here to figure out what the selling price is going to be. Okay, now because it says the markup is 60% on selling price, I know my selling price is going to be the base. The cost to the store is $400. They mark the TV up 60%, so the 60% goes here. That's the amount of the change, which means the cost would be 40% of the selling price, because the cost plus the change is going to give me the selling price. Okay, now we need to figure out what the selling price is. So this is our question mark here. So we always use the column with the base, and then I don't want to use the DM column here because then I would have two question marks, two unknowns. So I'm going to use the cost column. Now I always put the amount of the base in this bottom left corner. So I'm going to leave a question mark there, or you can label it as P. Then the other two values that we know is 400, and the rate always goes down here, and I put it down as a decimal. So the selling price is going to be whatever I get when I take 400 divided by 0.40. And that's going to give me, when I do that on my calculator, $1,000. So the company bought the TV for $400, marked it up $600, which is 60%. And now is selling it for $1,000. So we're starting with a selling price of $1,000 for this TV. And then it goes through a series of markdowns and markups. So we did this part of the question right here. Let me highlight it in a different color. So I'll use green. That's my favorite color. So we did this part here. We figured out what the selling price is. But now he's going through this period where he's doing markdowns, a series of markdowns and markups. So I'm going to make a chart to kind of help you see what's going on here. This is the original selling price. Now it says, a special promotion, Jones marked the TV down 30%. If he marked it down 30%, that means he's only paying 70% of the original 1,000. So I'm going to label this as a 30% markdown. I'm going to use the arrow down for markdown. Then it says he marked it down another 20%. So if he marked it down 20%, that means he's paying 80%. Then it says he marked it up. Be careful. This really takes careful reading, so you have to go slow. He marked it up 10%. Now, if you mark it up 10%, instead of subtracting from 100 like I did here, right? For this one, I did 100 minus 30% to get 70% because it's a markdown. This one I did 100 minus 20%, which is 80%, which is a markdown. Because this is a mark up, I'm going to do 100 plus 10, which is 110%, which would be as a decimal 1.10. Now the question, after it says what the final markup or markdown is, we want to know what the final selling price for this thing is. So we're going to take 1,000 times 0.7 times 0.8 times 1.10. When we do that, we get $616. So this is the final selling price after all those price changes. Now you can certainly do this individually. you can take 30% off of 1,000 and subtract it off. Then you can take 20% off of whatever that value and mark it off. You can do it step by step if you'd like, and that's totally fine. But I think multiplying it all out together like this is a lot faster and a lot easier and a lot less likely you're going to make a rounding mistake when you do it versus when you do it as individual markdowns or markups.